Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Good morning,
Can
Tim.
anyone hear me?
Good morning, Tim.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hey, how's it going?
Morning.
It's Friday, so Friday's always a good morning.
It is a 3-day weekend Friday, guys.
Oh, yeah. I knew I liked Martin Luther King.
That's the reason.
Yeah, Monday is Martin Luther King Day.
Oh, I was joking about the only reason you like Martin Luther King was because it's Monday, but that was a bad joke.
Oh, no, that's not, no. Okay, so give it here just a few more seconds. I see other people jumping on. What we're going to talk about to start with are we spend a lot of time on the employees, which is where you will spend most of your time. That's where most of your dollars are. But on the financials tab is where you'll make changes to financial items. Scott, I hear you breathing. Did you want to say something?
No.
Oh, okay. Then he hit the mute button. He doesn't want us to hear him breathing. Okay. Okay, so I'm assuming everybody can hear me and see what I'm seeing. I shared my screen here. I just wanted to show you sort of like, and we probably need to make a document showing how, this is the financials tab. I'm in center 09, 010, and I've got the object at the bottom. And I just wanted to show, normally you only have the fixed amount column, the amount, the calculated total column, and then an FTE column. And sort of like on the employees, you know how we build up a lot of the total columns. And these columns are there if you need them. If you right click model, there's a roll up submenu. Like I said, normally you only have calculated total, total amount, and fixed amount. But these other columns just show you how we build up to get to the total amount. So just want to go over that real quick. They might or might not help you. They really help us when you say there's a discrepancy or why isn't a number adding up. We can go in and try to nail down exactly where the issue is. Before we really didn't know. It took a lot of investigative work, but having these columns really helps kind of pinpoint what's going on. So just start here on the left. The fixed amount, these are for fixed budget items. They're generally the numbers that come over from wherever the budget started, which is usually your operating, or it could be your adopted. So there's 1,500 there in the operating, and that's how the 1,500 probably got into this budget item to start with, because that's where the budget started. And then you also have some of we call these like roll-ups, the ones with the colored icons. That means they're rolling over from the employees. They can have fixed amounts, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But ones that are, these are salary accounts, but they don't come from the employees. Notice there's no FTE and it's just a fixed amount. These are like substitutes is usually a good example of where you just put in a fixed dollar amount for your substitutes. So that would be a fixed amount. Then if you had anything that had inflation on it, you know, over on the employees tab, you can create a group of objects. A lot of times it's like utilities. I don't have any in this scope. And then you can put like a 5% inflation factor on a certain group of objects. And then that number would show up here. And a lot of times, because you have a setting and you can say, what do I want to inflate? And I think by default, it would take whatever was in your operating. It takes that number, adds the inflation factor, and then that would be your inflation number. I don't have any set up here. I probably should have done that. Calculated, this is anything that I know there's a lot of calculated words here, but this is like for this example, we calculating PERS pickup, spreading PERS over over all the salaried accounts. That's where that comes from. Usually, if you don't have anything like that, yours will be empty there. The non-roll-up base, you guys probably won't look at that, but this is the non-roll-up base. If you add up these are non-rolled up salaries. And when we say roll up, we mean roll over or roll up from the employees tab. So that's the total. And you need that because then you have your non-roll up fixed costs. These are the fixed costs associated with this non-roll up base. Any employee benefits, it has its own column. Then you have employee salary. These are the FTE accounts from the employees tab. Any other pay component, supplemental pay. Remember, this would be supplemental pay, not pay that's included in the salary, which is what we went over yesterday. This would be pay that's marked as supplemental and is kept separate. You can see these do not follow the salary object. The results go into their own object. And then these are the fixed costs associated with these two salary accounts, or these two columns, because they both are salary. And then these are the totals of all the salaries. And so is this. And then that's how you add it all together, and that's how you get your final amount column. And if I just do a reset, which takes it back to its basic default, you see normally you only have fixed amount, which is normally what you care about, calculated total, which is a bunch of different things. You saw how they were built, but this is what's coming over from the employees tab, as well as some fixed costs that are being calculated on these salaries for your final amount. And it's basically the fixed amount plus calculated gives you your amount, your final amount. And then you can see which accounts are your FTE. If you want to change a budget item, I'm going to start with just a simple non-roll-up budget item. You have a new amount and a variance column. Let's see, I'll start with 1,500. If you want to change that to 3,000, you simply and I suggest when you're making budget item adjustments, just try to get your scope down as low as you can, put the object at the bottom, and make the adjustment to the full account code. So you can all you do is just simply put in your new amount. And you can make 2 or 3 changes at the same time. And you can see the variance. It says, okay, well, that's the difference, because you can also do something based on a variance. You could put in, you can also put a percent in, 5%. It will calculate what the percent is of that and make that the new amount. You can do negative as well. So you can make as many changes as you want and then save it. And then those just get pushed over to the fixed amounts, and you have new fixed amounts. Changing these are a little bit trickier because we calculate this number. But if you need to make changes to these numbers, you sure can. Ideally, I would suggest best to make the change. Like if you wanted to change Social Security, it might be best to change it on the employees, add a budgeted position. I don't know, there's a million different ways, but at least that way it's all consistent. But if you need to override a calculated total, you can. Let's say I want that to be 100,000. So you put in the 100,000 and you're given 2 questions. Select yes to always fix the budget item amount to 100,000. So whatever's calculated, ignore it and always put 100,000 in there. Select no to create a variance adjustment which will always add 4,253 to the calculated total, which is the difference of 95,747 and 100,000. So that way you're taking what's calculated and then you're always adding 4,253 to that. So yes would do the overwrite. That's just called a fixed adjustment. No, we call it a variance adjustment or a delta adjustment. So I'm just going to say fixed adjustment. You'll get a pin over here. I don't know why it's purple to start with, but it will turn red after the save.
That's showing that it's a new override.
Oh, okay.
Because you might have other pins. You might, if you're doing multiple changes in the grid, you know, it just shows that this is a new
Right.
one.
Oh, that makes sense. Thank you, Scott. So there's my red override pin. You can see what the override is, but if you ever want to look, you can put your mouse cursor over it, let it hover for a second. Has fixed adjustment 100,000. So you can see whatever's calculated, you're overriding it. So be careful about this, because if you were to go to the employees and make changes, you know, you would not see that number change if they were in this scope. Another thing to think about is no matter when I look at, if I were to roll up Social Security in a scope, the red pin would be there. If you have one budget item here, maybe I should just show it. Before I do that, let me copy this account code so I can come back to it easy. So let's say you clear your scope and you move your object to the top and you sum it, and or let's just do general find. If in the roll up on the grid, if it has one overridden amount, the pin will be there. I did some other ones last night, but the pin is there. So unfortunately, the only way, there it is, but that could be a culmination of a bunch of different fixed amounts as well. That I just happen to have one on this one. But if you have one object that's overridden, you're going to have a red pin. And then you'll have to, you know, if you can't remember where it was, you'll have to use the scope and put 220 in your scope, put the object at the bottom, and then just kind of scroll until you find the one account code that has that override amount. Does that make sense? So the whole amount really isn't being overridden, but one or two or more full account codes are, but you'll still see it even when you roll it up in the grid, because that 100,000 could be numerous overrides. All right, so since I copied the account code before I switched, I can just paste in. Of course, it was the account code that had the 220 in it, so I need to take out 220. And I want to move my object back down here. Any questions about that? I'll do a, and take out the summing. If your grid ever shows up like this, it means it's just collapsed. If you hit the control key and press plus, it will expand the entire tree for you at once. If you just click on it without the control key, it just does it by tree level. So a lot of times it's just easier to do the control key. So let's say I want to override workers' comp, but this time I want to do it with a delta. I want to always add 20,000 to whatever's calculated. So put in the 20,000. Select no to create a variance adjustment that will, oh, wait, hang on, I messed up. If I want to always add 20,000, I need the new amount to be 35,031. Sorry about that. 35,031. So that way it will always add 20,000 to the calculated total. Does everybody understand how that's working? For this one, I want the new amount to be 35,031. because I want to always add 20,000 to whatever is calculated here. So then if you go to the employees and you make changes, this number might be different. The calculated number might be different, but it will always add 20,000 to that. So this time I select no. We're going to change this from, I know it's a little convoluted, yes and no, but we can't right now because of a restriction in the way Windows does the buttons. So anyway, no means a variance adjustment. And you'll notice you'll have, it's like a pin, and when I save, it'll be red again, but you'll have a green delta icon, which means it is a variance adjustment. So if you know you want to always add 20,000 to something, you want to do a variance. So now there's the 15 plus the 20 for 3501. And then if I went into the employees tab and made a bunch of changes, added budgeted positions, this would go up, but whatever is calculated, it would add 20,000 to that. So does everyone understand the difference between a fixed amount, sort of like an override, versus a delta adjustment? And again, you would have a tooltip that shows exactly. If you ever want to clear all of your adjustments, I don't know why you would want to clear all of them, but if you want to clear some of them, you can go to Tools, Copy Clear Scenario Data, Clear Model Fixed Amounts. And the good thing about this is you can limit it to the scope. So if I just wanted to clear these, I had other ones, but I didn't want to touch those, and I wanted to clear these, you could do it this way, and you even have some, you can fix just the fixed ones, just the overrides, the deltas. So you have some options on how to clear them. But if you want to manually clear one, you go to the new amount and you put in a 0, press enter. Now you have a little bit different option here. This is select yes to clear the override. That would just take the override away. But it could be that maybe you're trying to set it to 0. So you could say no, and it would set that to 0. Do you understand the difference there? Yes clears it. I'll go ahead and clear it. Yes will clear that 100,000 and allow the calculated total to be the driver of the final number. No is basically another delta, but you're setting it to 0. So now my calculated total is back. Did you want to say something, Scott?
Yeah, when you get a chance, bring up that clear
Okay.
fixed amounts again.
I got it.
No, the scenario clear.
Oh, I see the whole form. Okay, gotcha.
So we were talking with the district a few months ago. Boy, my screen's really tiny. And they talked about doing, with considering responsibility center managers, they wanted to be able to clear out all fixed amounts. And so that they had to, each manager had to plug in amount. They couldn't just take what was already there. And so that's what the option all fixed amounts. If you click the all fixed amounts, it's pretty clear what it's going to do. It's going to clear all the fixed amount columns. So you have to be careful.
Even like this 2,000 here?
Even if it's 300 through 699.
Oh,
it's just,
okay. That's
what that option's for. And I probably should put a "Are you sure?" message after that if that's checked.
Right.
So the good thing is, if you're not that far along in the budget, you could just simply recalculate, and it's going to repopulate everything that's calculated. And if otherwise, you can just copy from Infinite Visions back over your model and just have it recalculate all the values. So that could be a tool even for you if you wanted to clear all the fixed amounts and then copy everything back over from Infinite Visions and recalculate. It's kind of like resets your model, but I guess that's what copy would do anyway. So anyway, but that was an addition. You could limit your scope to just the responsibility center managers and the 300 through 699, and then clear all the
Fixed amounts.
fixed amounts, so they have to actually think and put a value in there. So anyway, I wanted to just cover that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So that way you force them to come up with a number, right?
Right, and that's why we have the option on the budget book worksheets to pre-populate their proposed amount or leave it blank, you know, and if you pre-populate it for them, then they just have to go in and make the changes.
If you wanted to say, I wanted to clear all my workers' comp deltas, could I just clear the scope and just put in object 0231?
Yes.
Okay. So you could do asterisks for everything else, but if you wanted to clear just workers' comp,
right,
you put the object in. So I would clear everything, put in 0231. And then that would go through and clear
why didn't it like that?
the fund.
Click, actually edit, you can edit it right in that box. Just put the cursor in there and push enter. Fund, that should be, oh, it's 232, that's why. Oh, 231 is workers' comp. Just change the 231 to just overstrike it, 231.
Change it to what?
Change it to 232, then back to 231. Yeah, so there's something wrong with the validation when it comes in from the budget element string
Right, okay.
editor, from the account code editor.
So if you want to change if you want to erase just a certain object code, that would be the way to do it. Maybe you would want to uncheck. Oh no, you would have to have that checked to use that.
Right. And the object type is there. In most cases, you know, object types are unique across all budget object types: expense, fund balance, and revenue. But there are districts, it's very, very common in Washington that you might have the same object ID as revenue and expense, but they mean two different things. It's really a nightmare if you ask me, but you do not have unique object codes in Washington. So
right.
That's why you have to maybe specify what the object type is also.
Any questions about new amounts, variances, overriding, updating?
I have a quick question. This is Rhonda. So in light of what Scott just shared with us, so if you wanted to just get rid of the 232 adjustments that you did, what box are you going to choose down below to be able to clear it? You don't want to choose the all fixed amounts?
No.
You could. You actually, if you want to, just to clear the fixed overrides, yeah.
You would want to click, well, it depends if you have the overrides or the delta overrides. Like this one is a delta override, so.
So if we were just clearing delta, so if you did choose all fixed amounts right there, can you explain again what that would do when you have it filtered in the scope?
Well, for Social Security or workers' comp, whatever, any one of these, it would clear it. Well, actually, there is no fixed. It would just clear the fixed amount. Because it's a calculated amount. So the calculated amount, once you cleared and then recalculated, the calculated amount would go back into the amount. So, but if I didn't select delta override, it would not clear this one. Does that answer your question, Rhonda?
Yeah, kind of. I'm just a little confused still, sorry, on what the caution is with choosing all fixed amounts if you have it scoped.
Well, if you have it scoped, I see what you're saying. But Scott, if you do all fixed amounts, does that clear the override as well?
Yes.
So it reset, okay.
Yeah, and then if you get it wrong, recalculate it, recalculate your scenario. Since it's a calculated column, it's just going to plug the values right back in there.
Right. So I guess if you're using a limited scope like this, Rhonda, you could do all fixed amounts, and it would
Okay.
get rid of both fixed adjustments and delta adjustment.
Okay, that makes sense. But it's never going to mess with your calculated amount.
No.
Okay.
And Rhonda, even if it did, you just recalculate and it resets everything.
Okay.
Notice
Great,
when you click that, it grays these out, which means we want all of these.
Okay. Okay, got it.
And I wanted to show one thing here. Let me just refresh. So here's an instance where I've made some changes, not sure what I did, but I know there's been changes. I can look to see what's changed. Oh, no changes, okay. I'll just refresh anyway. These these salary accounts, non-FTE, the reason why they have a glyph like this is if you do enter an amount, they also need to have the fixed cost calculated on them, the payroll cost. So when you enter an amount for a salary account, it also, the grid calculates, okay, well, these will also change as well. These are not overrides. These are just the calculated amounts for the fixed cost for this value. So that when you click save, they will move over into the calculated total because they are calculated on. The 110 will go to the fixed amount because it is a fixed amount. Well, let me just save it. But these other values are calculated. So they'll go to the calculated total. And if I were to break out those individual columns again, you would see that they are non-roll-up fixed amounts, but they are calculated. But the salary is referring to, it's a non-roll-up salary, but it does have fixed cost associated with it. So that those values were added to these values. If you don't want it to do those in-grid calcs, you have this button right here. You can turn that off if it still works. I always leave them on because I like to see the, but if you were making a bunch of changes and you didn't, because especially if you didn't have these in your scope, it would, it would look strange. I believe now, maybe I'm mistaken. Scott, is that what that's supposed to do, right? Turn off the in-grid calcs?
What does it say on it? If you on the tooltip?
Calculation grid totals.
No, that will click on it.
Oh, there we go. It does the totals up here.
Right.
That's right.
It's going to do the in-grid calcs, but it's not going to calculate the totals. If you're doing something with a really heavily nested grid, it'll slow it down to try and do all of those.
That's right. I remember we had someone ask us to turn that off, and that's the whole purpose of that. It will, well, they're there now, but it would turn the totals off as you're making changes. Just, it makes things a little quicker, especially if you're making a lot of changes. So again, if I do something I don't want it, refresh is the best way. It will just say, are you sure? I want to add another center in here. The reason why I want to add another center is because I'm going to do a move. And I like to have where I'm moving something to in the scope, just so I can see it move, and it makes me feel good. So I added Glacier Park. I moved this one a while ago, dues and fees. So let's say I'm going to move, let's see, does this have, Okay, this has computer software already. This center has computer software, but I want to move its full amount to that center. Just right click, move. And it's basically the similar form to like when you move an employee. Okay, where do you want to move it? And I'm going to move it to 009. And it's just confirming where you want to move it. And again, you can make multiple changes before you save. So took the dollars out of there and moved it up into here. And you have you'll have a note. I won't do it right now, but you can also split as well. Right click, split, which is the same as a move, but you're just given the option of a percent of the dollars to move. So it's the same as a move, but you just enter a percent of how much you want to move. And then you can add budget items. One thing I wanted to show everybody, here's a good example. Notice that it's empty, and a lot of people say, well, why is that there? Remember, you have these data sets, and normally nothing shows up on the grid unless it's in one of the data sets. No, there's nothing in the model. No, there's nothing in operating. No, there's nothing in the current actuals, but there were 2 years ago. So that's why that is there right now. Right or wrong, that's why it's there. You can see if I wouldn't have added 10,000 here, that that had one $240 actual in it 3 years ago, but that's why it's sitting here in the budget right now. I'm sure somebody's thinking, well, isn't there a way to turn that off? Well, yeah, probably is, but okay. Any questions about the financials and making changes? If you were probably wondering, well, where's his revenue or fund balance? One thing I wanted to go over was on the scope, you have object types. By default, expenditures are checked. And if you look in your object list, these would only be expenses. And these are controlled, which Scott went over the other day on the budget element maintenance form. What are objects? I mean, what are expenses? What are fund balances? And what are revenues? But we try to filter what you see in the scope based on what object type. If you want to see the full budget, you can select all three. And notice up here now, the filter will show up telling me what, if there's nothing up there, that means it's expenses. If you change the filter, then you'll see what else is up there. I don't think I have any in these centers. They wouldn't have any revenue, but they would show up with the budget items. Well, we'll just do it. So I'm just going to clear my scope, move the object to the top, sum. So usually down at the bottom, near the bottom. So there's all the revenue. There is no fund balance because it has a different, we call these icons or glyphs. The fund balance has one with a little money bag next to it. It doesn't look like there is a fund balance object here. That's the grant coming from the grants, because that's the float account. Oh, here we go. Here, this is the, actually, I think Scott went over this Monday. These are on the assumptions, we created, you can do it with whatever accounts you want, but we see this quite often with utilities. If you go to the object groups here, you can create any group you want of any accounts, but we created this account, we called it utilities, and we put these four objects in there, and we put an inflation amount on it. I'll have to see what that is. We put an inflation on there of -3.5%. So over here, those objects are, when they show up in the grid, you'll see that they have that. It's normally it's going up because it's at higher inflation, but we put a negative, so with the green arrow pointing down. And I believe this was set up to, you can give it a source field, and we said the operating, so it takes the fixed amount in there. And let me add, that's a good reason to show off this column, model, roll up, inflation. So it takes that and it decreases it. That's -3.5% for the total. So the inflation column will show you the amount that you're changing the fixed amount by. We said the source account was operating, take 3.5% off of that, which is this amount, for the total amount of that. So that's what the inflation column does. And you can do that with any objects you want to over on the assumptions. You can create if you have a group of objects you need to do something to, you can do that. Any questions? Everyone still awake, I hope?
Can the inflation factor be set in the grid, or do you have to set it in the assumptions?
You have to set it on the assumptions.
Okay.
I guess you could override it here if you really wanted to, but I would suggest just doing it on the assumptions. Okay. Oh, adding a new budget item. Let me go back to my pared down scope. Oh, I forgot about the 220. Take that out. Over here, you got these little erasers. This one will erase just the line that you're on. That one erases all of your settings. This one will reset the order into the formal order. This is the paste. If you have an account code pasted to the clipboard. This one is, Scott, what is the original scope? That takes you back to the scope you had when you opened the form?
Yeah, if you change it, yes, it reverts it back. In case if you're working with a long list of like centers or budget elements, and you want to just start over from where you were without having to close and reopen the form. Right.
Okay.
And you didn't talk about that that one there. You can if you change your scope order, if you click on there, it should set that this is how your default sort order. So push shift and hold the reset, the third button. Man, I miss not having a pointer.
Yeah.
Shift, okay. Just go ahead and click it.
Yep.
And you holding the shift key down? Because it
Yes.
should, okay, click it, just click it.
So it must have set it.
Oh, it set it, yes.
Right.
But shift should actually overwrite it and set it to, maybe it's control. There, okay.
Yeah.
Control puts it in the formal state, and then if you click on that button again, it should put it back.
Oh, this one put it back, right?
No, and
Oh.
that reverts your scope.
Oh, right.
This is just the order. So do control reset on the third button, and then do that button. Did it put it back? It didn't put it back. All right, revert it. I'll have to check on that.
Okay. We try to make that. We know the scope form can be a little confusing, so we're trying to make shortcuts for you guys to But dragging and dropping always works really well, which is what I want to do. Move the object down. I want to get rid of, and we know this highlighting is kind of an issue. We're still trying to fix that. But I want to get rid of just this line so I can use that to clear it. And I want to take out the summing. You can add budget items. It's similar to adding an employee. It's usually best to put your cursor where, close to where you want the new budget item to appear. You can right click, add budget item, or you can click the green plus. And basically, generally what you want to change, since you're already in the close to the account code that you want, you're going to usually just change the object. So let's say I want to put in something that's not there yet. We'll do rentals and leases. You give it an amount. If you need to make any other changes, you can. But again, try to make sure it's within the scope that you already have on your grid. Click add. So it just inserts it. You can add multiple. And if you needed to change the amount here, you could again, but it just stuck in what I put in the form, and then save it. And notice it's purple with a purple plus. That means it was added to this scenario. Purple means added to this scenario, newly added to this scenario. So you can easily spot items that you've added.
And it's actually added by a user. It's user added.
User added, right? Okay, thank you.
Because you might have others that show up in purple that that were added by calculations.
Right.
So the plus means it's user added.
Well, you could zero it out. Can you delete it? I was thinking if you could. Yeah, you can. Because it is user added, it can be user deleted.
As long as there's no, as long as it's empty, there's no other data in the current or infinite visions.
Right. Yeah, these other ones.
Actuals.
Right. These other ones that are there for whatever reason, because they have data somewhere, notice that you cannot delete them. Just like on the employees, the only employees you can delete are budgeted positions or vacancies that have been added by you. We don't allow to delete anything that was brought in or should be there. Any questions about adding? Nope. Okay. Let me look at my new budget item, scope filter. I want to show you the filter on the employees tab real quick. Similar on the scope form, you have a filter tab. That you might use where you can say, I want to look at only active employees, which is the default. You can look at just budgeted positions, new, supplemental, vacancy, timesheet. You have an and or are. And these are called tri-state. When they're gray, it means, okay, completely ignore the flag. I don't care if active or not. If it's black, it says only show me active employees. So I'm just going to click OK. You'll see my filter goes active, and I only want to see active, which is probably the same ones that are already here. If I don't want to see active, you uncheck. So it says, I only want to see employees that are not active, which I don't know why you would want to do that, but. No employees. So you can use these flags if you're trying to find particular employees. Another one that gets used a lot are salary plans. If you want to look at somebody just on certain salary plans, you can click on that. It's similar to like doing a QBE, where you're saying only show me employees that have plan 1. So I was going to talk about trying to create a new year. And Scott, am I doing that on Reynolds? Is
Yes.
that right?
Yep.
Reynolds. Production or test?
Production.
Production. Okay.
Imagine that.
Oh boy.
Hold on to your hat, Becky.
We always get nervous when we go to you guys' production. So I'm going to switch over to the Reynolds production server.
So this is, you hear me kind of complaining all week about this problem with the SolarWinds breach and Northwest Regional lockdown, and kind of changed the mechanism that I had to use to connect to the Infinite Visions database. And it's really got me wrapped around a fence post trying to get ready for this, get ready for the web app, get ready for the Excel add-in, and get everybody who's on at Northwest Regional reconnected so they can do their New Year's. Well, about midnight last night, I think I got it working. I created a new year. I had a couple errors. I've cleaned them up, and Becky told us we could actually try and create the new year again live. Is it live or is it Memorex? So we're going to actually connect to the Reynolds production and create their new year. There will probably be, hopefully, an inconsequential error that comes up regarding staffing plans, but Infinite Visions doesn't actually use the staffing plans yet, which is probably why the error comes up. But I don't believe it's consequential to the creation of the new year.
I don't know if you guys saw or not, but I did get a pop-up saying, hey, Tim, be careful. You're connecting to a production database. And just like you guys would get a pop-up that says, hey, be careful, you're connecting to a test database, just to give you a warning that you might not be in the database you want to be in.
I think in 17 or 18 years, I've only accidentally done a significant deal to a production database once or twice and had to revert to backups. And I think in, 7 years, Tim, you've only done it once.
Once, yep.
Yeah.
My eyes go down to this quite often before I click save or make a change. Okay, so here we are in Reynolds production database.
While we're here, notice, I don't think in our data, we've, let me see, where's the annotation? View options, annotate, and then there's a arrow. Okay. So I don't think in our data, we have actually got any empty records, but that's the little glyph that tells us that that record is empty across all data sets. So if you were to recalc these employees with the remove empty, it would actually remove those records from the scenario. So
right.
We don't see it that often, but we talk about this little silver box or empty box, and that's what it looks like.
Right. That means they're empty in all the data sets. But remember, if you save a baseline, they're going to be in the baseline. Do we show a differentiate between the baseline, Scott?
No, they have to be empty in the baseline also.
They have to be empty in the baseline. So if you have an old baseline there and you're wondering why an employee who is zeroed out isn't isn't have the gray box, then that means that they could be probably in the baseline. And you can always go to tool, and you know it's a baseline you don't need anymore. Tools, or you have to do it on the financials, but there's a baseline, clear baseline
I
on the
thought we had
financials.
baseline there. We need to put it there. Okay.
Probably so, yeah. But you can clear your baseline, and then that employee would have the gray box. And it's not just employees, like that budget item that I added a couple of minutes ago on the other database. If I were to zero it out, since it wasn't there to begin with, that means it didn't have any data. If I were to zero it out of the model, it would have a gray box as well. So you can have empty budget items too. So what was I doing? Oh yeah.
Scenario
New-
Explorer.
Yep. So like anytime you want to do something with a new scenario or scenarios, it's Scenario Explorer. And we are working on trying to make it faster. It has a lot of data in it. So I'll just maximize this. Here's Scenario Explorer. They need a 21-22. God, I can't believe we're there already. They need a 21-22. So they need to create a new year. The way to do it is you want to pick, because it is going to be as far as the assumptions go, it's going to be a copy of whatever is scenario you create it from. So generally it's your adopted scenario, or maybe a working scenario if you have a working. But generally for most of you guys that don't do workings, you're going to use your adopted because it has all of your final values on the assumptions. So you want to make that the parent for the new year. Right click, create scenario. I can new year scenario 21-22. Yep, that's what we want. And you are given a few options. The biggest one being keep model data. So if you wanted to start your new year with the same model data, the green, you would select that box. Generally, you don't want to do that because what's in the model is not what's currently happening in Visions or in your ERP system. So unless you're doing it from a working scenario is after you're adopted, you create a working scenario, it reloads Infinite Visions and it shows you the differences. Okay, well, this is what we adopted and what we thought was going to happen, but here's what's actually happening. And then you can reconcile. And then if you have a working scenario, your working scenario, your model is a good reflection of what's in ERP or Infinite Visions or Business Plus. But most of you don't do a working scenario, so you would not want to reuse the model data from the scenario you're creating it from. And then you're also given the option of keeping any budgeted or vacant positions that you have in this adopted scenario. And then you can, if you want to, annualize the employees. And we talked about the other day is when you annualize an employee based on, if you guys remember on the salary plans tab, there is a annualized source column where you say, I want any employee that's on this salary plan, I want to annualize them to either the salary plan work days. And when we talk about annualized, we're only talking about their work days, moving their work days. Because if they're mid-year hire, you want to move their work days to match either the salary plan that they're attached to, the position that they're attached to, or work calendar that they're attached to. So they're attached to one of those three. And if you click annualize, anybody who comes in and they're a mid-year hire, it will move their work days, because obviously you want to budget them for a full year for next year, for the next budget. You don't want them to be a partial employee, partial work time. You want them to be a full employee because you expect them to be there next year. So you want to budget for their full total cost. So you can annualize here if you want to. If not, you can do it. There's a step to do it later. I'm going to go ahead and Becky, do you want me to annualize your employees?
No, don't do that.
Okay, never mind. I won't do that. Scott, and can you explain what this is?
If drop it down, what's in there?
Nothing.
If you had a different database that you wanted, if you had a provisional database and that was available and it was in that list, you could actually reload your budget from a provisional database. How about that?
Yeah.
So, and you could reload your employees from a provisional database. So,
all right. So
but
generally,
otherwise you just take the default.
Right, the default. And then if you want to open the scenario after creating.
That's not actually working, but it will be when we finish cleaning this build up.
Oh, okay. I'm going to uncheck it anyway. I don't like it for it to just open automatically in my personal preference. And then all of this is just saying the same thing that I just said, basically about keeping the model data or pulling in everything new from Visions or Business Plus. It pulls it into the blue columns and then copies it into the model. And then that is your starting point. You're taking a snapshot of what's in ERP. I'm going to go ahead and click create. You're taking a snapshot of what's in your ERP, and that's going to be your starting point for your 21-22 budget. So this will take a couple of minutes. Any questions while this is building?
And this can take 15 to 20 minutes. So while that chugs along, I want to see if we do get that error on the staffing plans.
I will be back in just a second.
Okay, well, Tim, I'm gonna take it and
okay. Do I need to assign it to you, I think?
You just have to unshare.
Unshare,
and we'll come back to that.
Okay.
I'm not gonna take long because of my constraints and priority to get the web app going. We're gonna have to have a separate session in a couple weeks to show the
Scott, I wanted to show you I did just get an error go by.
Was the staffing plans?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, don't worry. It should not impact it. So
okay.
All right.
Let me unshare again.
Clean up my desktop. Okay, and then I go share screen, and we're going to share that screen. And so now you can see my desktop. And I'm going to drag over this guy here. And you might actually think that looks like ESP. It actually, I guess, is ESP, but it's, here's ESP. And there's ESP on the web. So we actually showed this about 3 years ago in its initial state, but the developer that was working on it had some health issues and had to leave the company, and then different constraints were pulling us in different directions, and we kind of just shelved the whole project. But this last summer, we resurrected it, and we've now got a fella offshore and working on this. So he works all night, and then I get up in the morning and give him feedback. But the goal of the web app is to provide, first of all, a non-desktop application. So this can actually be accessed as a web app anywhere in the world, essentially, once it's all set up with security. The other idea is to kind of simplify the user interface as much as we can. And the third object is to not take a lot of excursions away from the general look and feel of the desktop. So that's why it does look the same. It uses all the same server logic. All it is a different front end. All the modeling, all this data sets, even the data sets and the columns and their colors come from exactly the same spot that they do on the desktop app. So we are just really putting a different face on the desktop app. And one of the cool things is it does tend to offer better performance. If I were to refresh this general fund by object, it does actually load faster. The whole thing starts up faster. The employees load faster. There is a Scenario Explorer. It's not as full featured as the Scenario Explorer in the desktop app, but it's not really intended to be. This isn't designed to replace the desktop app for the budget office workers, but to just allow. Again, the goal is to expose a simple user interface that's quick to the responsibility center managers. Or if you're in the middle of a meeting or something and need to check something, you could pop in here and check whatever you want. But it does have the same, most of all the columns and everything are the same. You can, you'll be able to edit. We do not allow spreads yet. I don't know if we ever will. So if I wanted to actually make a change, I'd have to drag this to the bottom, drag the object to the bottom. See, we have a scope form, looks just like, or as close to just like, and let's do, the drop downs are acting a bit funky. It's really weird. Let's type in, can I clear it? Might need to catch up with me. Yeah, click it, it closes. Well, let me try that again. Drag this down. I don't want to load the whole general fund. Huh. Let me refresh this thing. I did send, I'm working on not the development database, what will be the final production web server. And I'm not sure if he's pushed all of his changes onto this server.
One thing I like is how fast the scope form pops up. I love that.
Oh, I see. It's after I move stuff that the drop-down list gets funky. Oh, I want to put the center up there and drag the object down, and I want to unsum everything. Okay. So this is going to give us the budget for, now we didn't move the count type codes from the filter tab, but I will have him do that and put them across the top so they're just like they are in the new desktop or the latest desktop app. So once I get a full scope, I can now go in and edit the budget items. So I wanted to put in he's got some work on the in-grid calcs. Why is that? So he's, again, it's not 100% ready for prime time, but it's really, really close. It's doing the in-grid calcs though. And that's strange because last week I was able to just make edits and that you get the cheese wheel to come light and everything. So it does see that I've made a change there. But the idea is that it's going to work as close to the desktop app as possible. If you
Except be extremely faster.
well, yeah, but and it's going to support save grid views, so you can strip the columns down. You'd have to set up a saved grid view for the responsibility center managers, and then that would become their default on the web app. Now, I did have a question. If I were actually signed in as an RC manager, I would only have access to the scenario that's identified and as the responsibility center management scenario. I'm going to drag it over from my other screen. And today, you can only have one scenario identified as a responsibility center manager. And that's, again, to simplify the user interface for the managers, is to not give them too many choices. And there's a status for that. I've already got it on the grid. And it's by fiscal year. So if you decided that you're done with this, or you want to actually lock them out and not give them access to that scenario anymore, you could just uncheck that. And it's got the little school building next to it. Whether we get to a point where we would allow multiple responsibility center scenarios in a budget or in a fiscal year, that might create the way they have to make a choice. You'd have to give them instructions which one to do. In this case, we've got a working scenario that's also flagged, because you might actually want them to go in and put their projections in where they see their purchase services and materials and supplies, put projections in there. There's actually a projection column. But what I wanted to get input from, and I know Olivia, is she still here? No. When they make changes in the web app, they have a new amount of variance column, just like on the app. And when they save it, it's going to apply it directly to the fixed amount. And there will be an audit that you'll be able to see in the desktop app. But I'm wondering if I should have an RC proposed column, that when an RC, a responsibility center manager, is submitting their budget or updating their budget, if you feel you would rather have them put it in a RC proposed column, and then if it would be down here in the model, and we would have an RC proposed column that you could turn on, and then it would have a sister column that would be a checkbox that you could turn on the proposed amount column, and then the checkbox would show up, and then you could actually say you could accept their input into the model. Or do you want to just let them plug it into the fixed amount column and then just review it? Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Nobody wants to speak. Martha, how about you? Any ideas on that? Does my question make sense?
It does. I just don't know if I'm ready for anybody to be making changes directly.
Well, and that might be an answer in itself, is that they can't actually adjust the fixed amount column. All they can do is update a proposed amount column. And then you would go in and just accept it. So that's, your response there, because if you're taking baby steps, that would be a first step. Let them do that, let them get used to it. And then maybe I have a setting that says RC managers can update fixed amount directly, or like a use. If I did a use.
There'd be like I'm just wondering, would you have like a workflow where you would have them, how would that work then if they go in and you have one that's just the RC proposed? And then would that show up in what on our end, and then we would be able to approve that, or how would that work?
Right.
Or is it?
Right. You would, in their view, you would lock their view that when they did the new amount and variance, they would see the proposed amount. They wouldn't see they couldn't. You would actually set it up to where they wouldn't even see these columns, and then you would say new amount variance, or we could actually make the proposed amount directly editable. And hide the new amount variance, because this does confuse some people. So if you had a proposed amount, they could just go in there and plug numbers in like it's a spreadsheet.
So could we have,
And then with a checkbox on your end, they wouldn't see the checkbox, but when you showed the proposed amount, you would have an accept checkbox that would then save it and move and then accept their proposed amount into the budget.
could we have a column just specifically for, and I'm guessing this is kind of what you're saying already, but specifically just for those type of adjustments where the only things in there are adjustments for the responsibility center. So as soon as it's approved by like Martha, it just goes out of that proposed column, and then the column is blank until somebody tries to change it?
Yes, that's exactly what, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
that's exactly what I'm proposing. Because again, like I do understand what you're saying, Martha, is you don't want them in there mucking around with your fixed budget amounts. But to facilitate more access to the system, give them their own column to play in, so to speak, and then you can accept it. I think I've answered my own question. I think that's probably the way to do it. And then I would think, I'm trying to get my window over here. Then maybe on the user administration form, my computer's running super slow. I don't know why. I don't think I don't think I have any real big processes running, but probably on here at the department or user level, probably have one of these options down here that says use RC proposed column, and then you could control it, turn that on, and they have to make their inputs into the proposed amount column, and they can't edit or put. Actually, they wouldn't even have to know it was happening. It would just the views and the saving would automatically set it up, because we'll know that they're an RC manager when they save adjustments, and we will just automatically, if that's set for their span of control, because you might, for programs, district programs, you might go ahead and let special ed or the other areas go ahead and edit directly into the fixed costs, but not the actual school administrators. So, okay, I think I've answered my question. But back to the web app, it's gonna work just like ESP does, except you'll have a lot more control over stripping it down. I guess you can strip down the main desktop app also, but they'll be able to edit the individual employee workdays and work hours. If you give them access to the employees, you can just flat turn the employees off and only let them edit 300 through 699. That's also possible. So, any questions on this? I'm anticipating this is going to be ready by the end of next month. So for end of February and March, this would be available. We do have to do something for the districts that are not on our cloud service. So like for the LBL districts, and for Martha, for you, I think we'll be able to quickly overcome it, because this web, I don't want to go into the separate ESDs well, Martha, you've got your own servers there too, and have to set up a separate web server. I'll just need to well, Martha, you are on our cloud services, so that's not
Yeah.
it would be Clackamas ESD and Lynn
LBL.
Benton ESD. And Rhonda, I'll talk to Brian Berkeley about it. Since we already have a connection from our cloud into there for Klamath Falls, I think he would just have to say we can also access the ESP database server through that VPN, and then I'll be able to pull data up from your ESP server through our cloud services and let this web app work for that also. So anyway, I'm actually pretty excited about it, and I'm actually even more excited to show you guys the Excel add-in that I'm working on. But it's not, again, I've been sidelined on getting that progress done on that because of other issues. But again, I hope to have that done in the next 30 to 60 days also. Okay, and Tim says, so if there's any questions on the web app and the direction we're heading, yes, no, don't know. I think they did he implement save the spreadsheet? I think I haven't actually looked at it in a while. He did it in kind of a different way than I'm doing it. Oh gosh. So here's the save to spreadsheet. Oh, he actually did the subtotaling. Oh, that's kind of cool. I don't think it's live though, but it works. You can actually get the data out. I think he's actually using a library that actually does this, and that doesn't have to do it column by column the way I'm doing it, which eventually we'll do the same thing. So, okay, so I heard from Tim, and I'm sorry, Becky, I guess we got some errors on your New Year. So
Yeah, it looks like there's still a connection issue.
Okay. All right, so Tim, why don't you bring it back? We'll take a look at that, and then I've got nothing more. We'll just open it up for questions and hopefully answers.
I know that one time you had provided us with it looked like maybe it was an Excel spreadsheet that kind of summarized different data points that you were going to make available for like the responsibility centers and was going to be maybe integrated with Gmail. Is that something you finalized or?
That's the Excel add-in. And let me just bring that up.
Okay.
Let me see if I've got that on my desktop to show that. Tim's sharing now. I might have to have you come back.
Oh, stop sharing. I like to share. Oh. I'm a sharing person.
Share screen. Martha am I sharing now? Oh,
yes.
Okay. Is this what you were talking about?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Yep. Yeah, the Excel add-in is going to have several different modes. One of them will be the dashboard, and this will give them for that particular responsibility center their fiscal year spending to date, some totals, a chart, and then actual tabulature data of their expenditures, and you'll be able to control what columns show up on this. I don't know if you know, let me turn this back on. There's you can set up the default grid views. You can see I created one for RC Workbook that'll be driving the responsibility center input, but there'll probably be a grid view RC manage or RC dashboard to where you can actually build the columns that you want to show up in this data field here for the responsibility center. And then this will just flow. It'll have a tool, it'll have a ribbon toolbar, and they'll be able to like select, I want to look at my dashboard, I want to look at my budget entry. I see three modes. There's going to be the dashboard, which is their year, what's going on today, where are they as of the last, and you'll have to decide, do you want it updated daily, or do you want the RC dashboard to be updated monthly? It just depends on how you want to set that up. And then I can see the budget proposal for next year, which should be essentially like the web app, but it'll be a spreadsheet, and they'll be able to make changes. It'll look a lot like the RC entry sheets, and actually push the changes back in. And again, they'll go into the RC proposed column that we just talked about, rather than straight into the fixed amounts. And then you can accept them. And as they make changes, they'll be able to change the status of their budget. It comes out as new, and then as soon as they make the first change, the server will automatically set it to in progress. And then when they're ready, they'll set it to submitted. And there's some rudimentary workflow that'll actually be able to notify you when things are happening on those individuals. And on the RC status pay responsibility center budgets on the main grid, you'll be able to see where people are in their budget and what the submittals are. And you can then review it. You can set it to review, say, okay, I got it, you've submitted, I'm reviewing it. And then you can pass it back to them and say, hey, what about, we need to look at this. And then they could resubmit it, and you can go back and forth until you're all set. And then the other one would be the working budget, where you may want to solicit their input on their year-end projections. If they, are they on track, or is there anything big coming up? If there's a challenge, I'd like everybody to go in and look at let's say it's February, and you're coming, halfway through the year. We need to reduce our costs. I'd like everybody to go in and see, remove non-essential spending from your budget, and they could submit that into a proposed column, and then see what that looks like. So those are the three modes I currently see for the Excel add-in. The nice thing is it's standalone. It's not a Google Sheet. I played with Google Sheets for about 2 months, and it's really kind of a cool package, but it really wasn't going to get us to where I thought I wanted it to go. And so I reverted back to using Excel and started looking into what the Excel add-ins could do. And they're actually pretty powerful. And I think that's going to be a tool that you can we can send a spreadsheet with the Excel add-in already installed, or we can just have you can open up Excel, and you can download the Excel add-in and install it in Excel, and they'll be able to connect and query based on who they are, whether they use a Google ID, a Google Sheets ID, whether they use a district ID. The cloud admin server will know who they are if they've been set up, and that's all they'll really need to know. And it'll just open up with their responsibility center. If they have multiple responsibility centers, like if you've got somebody that's over all of the schools or over all of the elementary schools, then they would have the center with all elementary schools, and then they could drop down and look at each one of the individual schools separately. So does that answer the question? Is it a good vision, a bad vision?
When did you say this might be available?
I'm hoping the next 30 to 60 days. So maybe by March, but that may not be in time for what you're doing. The web app will be available before that, for sure. I'm hoping by the end of February. Okay.
Depends on how many phone calls we get from you guys between phone calls and emails.
But I'm getting, I don't want to use the word pressure. but the incorporating the actual site managers into the budgeting process is a huge focus for a lot of districts right now, particularly the new ones that are looking to buy a system. So, okay. Any other? Oh, I'll give it up again, Tim. And
Well, honestly, I don't have anything else to show.
let me just. Can you share? I share that
Sure.
screen. I want to see
Yep.
that. I don't think it's any dirty laundry, but Becky, we'll figure this out here. And
Looks like there was
sessions.
this OLE DB provider, I think, is the problem. Link server, Northwest Regional. It doesn't have that table, FY 2021, so it can't find it, I think.
Yeah, but that is about, okay. I will. Oh, did you look at this? I was able to get this done while working on that. See, I'm actually summarizing the notes in the process log now. That was something that's a salary plan without benefits.
And if you double click, if you get an error or note, you can double click on it and it will take you up to, I don't know if it gives you any more information, but it takes you up to where it actually happened.
Yeah, it at least puts it in context with the whole process log, which is useful for us. So
right.
A lot of you just look at it and say, ugh! So, all right, so we'll just open it up for questions. And if nobody has any questions, I guess we will be done.
I will be posting. I've been recording most of these. I missed a couple, but I at least got one every day of the same material recorded. This one's being recorded, and I'll be posting those up to YouTube at some point over the weekend. So if you missed anything or want to rehear anything, it'll be there. I'll send out an email with links. And
okay.
Yeah.
I have a question. This is Rhonda. So do you have any documentation on creating a working scenario and how to use it? I dabbled in it last year and did pretty good, but I'm just wondering if you have any documentation.
No, and I guess this is the time every year where I have to apologize for our documentation. That we definitely know we need to do more of it and give you better guidance because there's a lot of things, and that's one of the reasons I know, Rhonda, why you like the annual workshops is because you learn a lot of things that you didn't even know were there, because we're not that good at communicating them because they tend to be like one-offs. We did it for this district or this district, or and then you say, yeah, I want to use that. An example would be grants. You know, when I first showed it on Tuesday or Wednesday, a lot of people were like, wow, I didn't know that was there. So yeah, I know we have to do better. But the short answer is no. But really the only difference between a working scenario and a new year scenario is it's in the same year as you're adopted. It's
right.
Really,
it's generally for showing what you adopted versus what's in visions for you.
Right. So if I wanted to reconcile right now my infinite visions to a working scenario, so I could copy the working scenario as my new year. There's been a ton of changes with all this COVID.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Advice there, you may want to, did you create a working for 2020, 2020, 2021? And did you select the option to reuse the model or to copy over?
I selected.
Oh, do you remember?
You're talking about for the working or New Year, Scott?
For the working.
I selected, no, okay, wait. To reuse the model data wouldn't bring the actual, I think I selected that, yeah.
To reuse the model?
Not remember.
Because the difference is if you want to look at what you budgeted, in other words, create a working scenario.
Here's the options, Scott. I got them up if you want to see them.
Create a working scenario and reuse your model or keep the model data from adopted. So that way it's going to reload all the employees. It's going to reload your adopted. So the blue columns will become your adopted. In a regular model, your blue columns are actually last year's adopted, right? In a working budget, we're assuming you're doing it within the fiscal year. So your blue columns become the adopted budget. And then it reloads the employees. And then if you keep the model, that's going to allow you to compare and use the reconcile tools to see where staffing is currently different than where you budgeted.
And that's what I did, because I did want to see the comparison.
Right. And then you can begin to reconcile, either using the reconcile on the scope or individual record by record, just copy from Infinite Visions, until you get the model set up. Now, in the working scenario, if you create it, totally recalc, and then save a baseline, you could then and then reconcile everybody over where they should be. And usually a working scenario, Tim, go to the, we're still on Reynolds, right? We probably should not do that.
Real quick, when you're in, you go to Scenario Explorer and you tell it to reconcile, and then it brings up your grid. Essentially what you're saying when you reconcile is you're reconciling the model data to IV, and it will copy over that.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And I don't know if people know, this is another one of those little things. See that your general fund budget and FTE, if you go to, and I probably should automatically set this in a working scenario, go to the assumptions tab, Tim.
Okay, real quick, I just wanted to show this. Notice everything's gray. A lot of the toolbar buttons are gray. If you ever see that, more than likely your scenario is locked. So look for the lock down here.
Yeah.
Okay. Go into the assumptions.
Okay, and right now your general fund, because when you're in the working scenario and in that mode, it's really important to make balanced entries to where you don't actually change your general fund amount. So if you were to go in and set your general fund total and FTE total to be what your adopted budget was, well, you see, this is 1,030.69 is 1,041. It's going to colorize these two numbers. Can't point. Hold on.
These two numbers here.
Yeah, it's going to colorize those based on those values.
So you see this is red because of this. It's a little higher than this number. Well, I think actually that's just rounding, probably.
Well, but the threshold is 104.1, so it actually that number should be green. The FTE in the heading should be green. Hold on, let me turn on the annotate.
Oh, because it's
and the arrow. It's right here. See the?
Oh, right. Yeah.
These are the targets. 104.1. So I'll have to check that. That should be green because it's less than the target. And and this should be green because it's actually should be red because it's more than the target. And while I'm here, if you are a responsibility center manager, these numbers will show your allocated amounts. So an allocated total and an allocated FTE, and they'll turn red and green based on whether you're above or below your allocated targets. So a responsibility center manager doesn't see the general fund totals. It sees their allocation amount. And I think it actually changes the label to allocation.
So if there's no information on your assumptions tab, if there's no dollars or FTE in that general fund target, why is that?
These are manually input.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
And that's what I said. I probably on a working budget should update those automatically to be the adopted numbers or from the
Yeah.
scenario you're connected to, because then it will be easy to track if you're above or below the adopted budget. That makes sense?
Mhm. And so when you create that working scenario and you recalculate employees, is it grabbing your what you said in your salary plans? I mean, or does a working scenario know not to step and do a COLA?
When you create a working scenario, it does what we call rebases the salary plans. It copies all the calculated amounts, or it redoes. It sets the hourly rates and annual rates to be what the results of stepping in COLAs were, or COLAs in that case, and then clears all the assumptions. So it does a reset of the salary plans, and it turns all the stepping off and the COLAs. So you are actually you're in a status quo mode is the idea, because realistically you could go in then and apply a second step in COLA in your working, if you wanted to, or create a model from working. If somebody mid-year wants you to do some number crunching and you've kept ESP updated with current staffing, then it's pretty accurate. You could actually show what happens if we do a step or a COLA here mid-year. So
That's why this checkbox is there, just disable inflation groups, because
right.
you don't want to inflate it again, because you want to know what's currently happening.
Okay.
Yeah, if you don't disable the inflation groups, it's going to double apply it.
Right.
But we don't want to clear the inflation factor out, because you may want to reuse it when you create your new year. So again, with some of those little subtle things, we had to make decisions. So we just decided to disable it and not apply it.
Scott, did you add this description here?
I did.
I noticed that. The other day we were talking about baseline. This is the baseline data set. When you save a baseline, you can add more information about what was in the baseline. Because before, all you had was the label. But now you can say this already had COLAs, or why you created the baseline.
Right.
That's
and
cool.
If you, it's eventually, and it's not going to happen right away, but when you save a baseline, all it gives you is a very simple text box to put in a label. I will change that to where you can put the label in, but it's also going to give you like a comments note, a comments box
Description.
to enter a description, and you can have up to 255 characters. I've allowed. If we need more, if you need more, you probably should look at attaching a note or doing something like that. So there is one other thing I wanted to show you. So Tim, let me have it back. So if we're looking here, if I open up the scenario audit, and I create a new note, and I say, please bring me a cup of coffee. And I click notify, and I come in here, and I'm going to set it to myself because I'm logged in as ESP support. But this list will have, and right now it only has the users, but it'll actually have the departments in there. So the RC manager, if you have a department, you could send this to everybody in that department. If you wanted to put in account code, attach it to the note, you could put put something in. Now this audit is really for us. And what that means is if we've found something in your scenario that we thought you should know about, a lot of times you've gotten emails from us saying, hey, we noticed this, just thought you'd like to know. We'll actually be able to do it this way. We'll actually be able to call it an audit item, but I'm going to click add. And I don't know why it doubled it up, but we will see. Now, if I just sit here for 5 minutes or however long, I think it's 5 minutes, I might be able to, oh, it popped up on the screen. So I've got now a message from me. It's to me, and I can do one of several things. I can say, remind me in 5 minutes, or I can acknowledge it and just make it go away, or I can say 15 minutes, 1 hour, or tomorrow. I might need to put in a remind me in 6 days, put a little drop down or something to give you, if you don't want to deal with this till next week, I think probably most of you would like to have at least a number of days, default to 7. It's next week. And then if I just click OK, it's going to pop back up again in 5 minutes. Or if I just click acknowledge, it's going to be done. I'm just going to click OK. And then it's going to say there's no more and I can close it. But you could have multiple notifications coming in from different places. So that's another way that you could communicate with responsibility center managers also. If you didn't like what they submitted, or you needed to convey some information to them, you can use this little mechanism. And when they pop up, when they open up ESP, and I'm saying that as all things are, it's we have to make sure that ability is in the web app to pop that message up. So in order to make it effective for them. So that's not a priority element, but it is something that needs to be in there. So that's good for you. You've always been able to create notes. We just added the ability to assign them to an individual. And you can actually do it from the main screen. You can assign a note and do the same thing here. Assign it to support. And at this point, if you do it from the main grid, it's automatically going to copy the account code of wherever you are on the grid. So I've got another one. And you can see also it did the little note icon there. Okay. Any questions about that? So there's another note right there. So probably if I yammer on long enough, oh, it popped up on the other screen. So there's that 5-minute one. Now I'll just acknowledge it. Oh, and there's that other one. And I can double click on it. I guess that is it. I can say acknowledge or go away. I'm just going to acknowledge it, and then it's cleared. And I think on the I haven't added the acknowledged. I haven't added the acknowledged columns yet, but they're there. So you can tell when they acknowledged it. You can even tell which workstation they were on when they acknowledged it. So, okay, any questions on that? All right. Nobody has anything. I think we were done. I thank you for your time. If you have any questions at all, you know how to reach us. And you guys have a great day.
Right. Thank you, everybody. We're always here to help. Emails work best initially, or phone calls, but with the emails, at least it gives us a chance to research what your question is, or if there's an issue. And remember, when you're emailing us, send good screenshots and as much information as you can, because that's the first thing we're going to try to do here is I'm going to bring it up and try to look at the problem myself first before we can figure out an issue. So just make sure you give us as much information as you can if you need any help or have a problem with anything.
And with that said, did you guys know there's actually a screenshot function built into ESP? If you go to help, screenshot, take screenshot and edit. If there's an editor set up, that'll work. And it actually did. It opened it up in Paint. Or you can, if you do that, you also, it puts it on the clipboard.
And then you can draw on it as well to highlight something to show us.
It puts it on the clipboard so you can just paste it right into an email. So we use TechSmith Snagit. It's pretty cool, but it's an additional software package. But we do have at least the basic abilities to capture a screenshot right in ESP. Okay.
Yep. A picture is worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
When it comes to that. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Also, Snagit is fantastic. We use
Yep.
it.
Yeah.
It's been great.
Yeah.
Awesome tool. Thanks, everybody.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and kill this.
Okay. I got to figure out what's going on with Reynolds.
Okay.
Problem is I don't have that log in front. Can you send me, do you still have that open?
Yes.
Send me a screenshot with the errors on it.
Oh, I already did actually.
Did you?
Yeah.
Was it in Teams?
Yep.
There
you
it is.
can't
Okay.
You can't see the whole, that one
Yeah.
error though. Let me copy that and paste it to you.
But that was, but did you look at the,